Hey YouTube, what's up? So if you're here, it's because you probably got this guy, right? And you probably have no clue how to use it, and definitely this set of instructions don't help at all. First thing I would advise is just use the batteries included. They'll last you like the first 10 hours, and it's okay. And then either get an AC adapter or use some rechargeable batteries like this ones I'm going to use. Make sure it's 2000 or more million pairs. 2700 is okay. That's what I'm going to be using. I've researched and I think that's the safest way to go. Less cables and more portability for this great machine. So let me tell you why I decided to make this video, because when I first got this machine, I started looking on YouTube for tutorials, and there's some excellent tutorials out there, but most of them assume that you have some previous experience with the Volca family, or that you're some kind of wizard with synths in general. But I'm a guitarist, as you can see, and I had absolutely no clue how to use this Volca or any of the other Volcas from the Korg Volca family. So I was looking at videos where maybe what I wanted to find out was one function, but in order to get there, the guys making the videos were so fast in pressing buttons that I was completely lost. So I did learn in the end, and I've been using this for about like 3 months now. So I've decided I'm gonna make a string of videos explaining the very basic aspects of how to use the Volca drum, but focused or geared towards someone who's never used a Volca before. So if that's you, stay tuned and let's go. Okay, so you've just got your Volca drum. You have no clue how to use it. First thing you do is you turn it on and it goes crazy like that, a lot of lights, and then you're left with this thing. Not much to do with it, but maybe just start pressing some of these buttons, and first thing you'll notice is that some of them have sounds and some don't. And then you'll maybe press play, uh, move some of these knobs, and you'll realize that maybe sometimes you get some reaction from the knobs and sometimes you don't, and then you're completely lost. So here's the first things you should know in order to start using this Volca drum properly. Um, this numbers down here, these buttons from 1 to 16 are called the step buttons, and they have a multiplicity of functions, but the main one that I want you to learn now is that only the buttons numbered from 1 to 6, and there's a mark here that says, are parts, and parts are sounds. Okay, so 1 to 6 contain sounds. 7 to 16 don't contain sounds. So don't try to find them there, because you won't find any sounds there. Only from 1 to 6. Okay, one thing you'll notice is that if I press 1, there's a light underneath the one that stays there, and then 2, and then 3. And no matter what I do, if I'm playing with this thing, that'll stay with number 3. That means that I've activated all the editing functions only for part number 3, or for part 5 or 6. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, that the way to identify which is the sound or the part or even the track, if you want to call it like that, that's active, is by the light right underneath the number from 1 to 6. Yeah, okay, so how about changing these sounds? Because I wanna find different sounds, and I'm sure that there's factory defaults for great sounds, but where are they? I mean, how do I find them? Definitely, if I start moving these things, I'm gonna mess up the sounds that I'm listening to, but that's not really accessing the factory defaults. So how to access factory defaults is entering the program menu, and you'll do that by pressing function and play. So now you have the 16 step buttons with their lights readily available for you, and just one that's blinking. That means that you're on program number 1. So we would change to program number 2, 4, 7, or whichever you want, 16, by pressing that light, and it'll keep blinking and tell you that you're on that program, right? So let's listen to it. Oh, nothing happens. Why? Because you have to exit the function mode to listen to the program. But we'll go back to one just so that, or yeah, to one more familiar, and we'll get out of the program mode and press play, and there you go. Okay, so again, to enter the program mode, you'll press function plus play. You'll choose the program you want to play with, and then you press function again and play. You stop with the play button again. Okay, so so what if I want to change while I'm playing to another program, because that's a way to string together ideas and make songs or whatever. So it would be pretty clumsy if I have to stop every time, right? So let's just play, enter the program mode while playing, and now I can change from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, etc. To stop, function, stop. Okay. One really cool thing about this program mode or menu is that you can string together programs or patterns or sequences. So let's see how we do that. We press play, we press function and play, and now I'll tell the Volca to play 3 and 4, one after the other as a string. Okay, so you can see that it's going back and forth every 16 beats to 3 or 4. You can also press, for example, I'm going to try pressing 3 to 9, and it'll string together everything in between. Let's see how to do that. 3 and 9, like this. And now everything in between is blinking, which means it'll go from one to the next in order and back. Okay, right there. So that's great. So that's great. If I want to get out of that, because it's going to keep on doing that until I tell it not to, I have to enter this mode again and press another pattern. Okay, so now we know that we have from this step number 1 to 6, we have the parts, which are sounds. And these parts can be saved into kits. Okay, so another way to access different sounds is to access the different kits. And just the same way as we accessed programs by pressing function and load program, we'll press function and load kit. Okay, so it's a very similar process. It'll show you the 16 possibilities, so you have 16 possible kits. And right now we were listening to kit number 7, and it sounds like this. Okay, a little bit louder. Okay, so now we'll load a different kit, and let's see how kit number 6 sounds. Okay, so definitely it's a different set of sounds, and we can do the same thing as we did with programs and just let it play first. Okay, and we'll be changing kits as we go, like another one. Okay. All right, that's a good one to stop. Okay, so that's the way you can access, and then later on you can save your own kits just by working on parts from 1 to 6, saving them into kits by pressing function and save kit, which I'm not going to do right now, and then loading kits just the same way as you loaded programs earlier. Yeah, another great function is this mute button. Okay, so we'll see what that's about. I'm just going to go ahead and play this pattern, this sequence that's saved on number 13, as you can see with the blinking light there. And I'm going to play number 13 then. Okay, a little bit faster, maybe there. And I want to see, so I want to play all the notes here. Okay, so what the mute button does is that it'll show you the 6 parts from 1 to 6. All the available parts are with the light on, right? So as soon as I press and put that light off, right, I'm just gonna allow the Korg Volca to play the part that's selected. Okay, so right now you're gonna just listen to part number 6 within that same sequence. Okay, now I'm gonna add the bass drum on number 1. I'm gonna add whatever's in number 2. Okay, that's like a hi-hat or shaker sort of thing. Number 3. Okay, there's my snare and everything comes together. Okay, number 4. And that's pretty cool too. Okay, and number 5, which I think is not intended to sound on this, but let's see what's happening. Yeah, that's a little bit awkward. It's good, but it would be a little bit off after a couple of repeats. What I also use it for is to figure out what's going on the factory defaults. So that when I want to like learn how this thing is programmed from factory, I choose, for example, let's say one of the factory defaults. Let's go again to number 7. We've done this quite a bit. We'll play it, and I'm going to go to the mute function, and I'm going to start muting stuff so that I see, for example, right now I'm going to listen only to that snare that's part number 6. So that helps me a lot to figure out how this thing is built. I'm going to go again, press mute, and activate number 5, part 5. I'm going to press mute and activate or unmute part 4, and so on and so forth. And it's even quite a musical effect as well. As I said, it's something you can use a lot to start building your performances with this mute button. Alright, so now that you know where your parts, your kits, your programs, and your mute function are, let's take a look at this edit step function, because this is also going to help a lot on your first journeys with the Volca drum. So I'm just going to play again our sequence number 7. That's the same, that it should sound exactly the same as what you got on your Volca drum, because I haven't touched that factory default, except for maybe tempo. Okay, so that is number 7. Let's check. Yeah, that is number 7. And I'm gonna choose part 1. Okay, and as I said earlier, that's indicated by the light down here. If I did 2, if I did 3, so let's stick to 1, and I've got my light down there, and I'm gonna say edit step. And right now what's happening is it's showing me every place within the 16-step sequence where number 1 is happening. So it's happening on step 1, 3, 5, 9, and 13. So let's hear that. That's cool, but there's a lot going on too. So how do I isolate that so that I can see it and listen to it in complete isolation? I'm going to press mute now, and I'm going to mute everything except number 1. As you saw, this time I slid my finger, and so that's a fast way to mute, especially for performance. All right, so now we should be listening only to that bass drum within this sequence. All right, so you can do that with any part or any, one or more parts. Let's do it with number 1 and 2, and I'll only listen to parts 1 and 2, but the edit step mode can only show you one part at a time. So let's see what's going on with part number 2 now. Okay, so as you see, now it went to 7, 10, and 15, and that's where it's located. Part 2 is located in those steps within the 16-step sequencer, and it should sound like this. Let's mute number 1, and we'll see only what's going on and listen only what's going on. Listen to only what's going on with part number 2. Okay, so that, as you can see, this is a really useful function to figure out what's going on, and then it'll be the main function with which you will create your own sequences. Because of course, right now, which I haven't done, is add stuff. So I'm going to add this sound, this number 2 sound. I'm going to screw this up and I'm going to add it like in just some odd places. I'm going to add it here, there, and there. So let's see what happens now. So I just added steps using the edit step mode. So it not only shows where things are, but it's the main feature with to build your patterns with. Okay, so that's going to be a key function for you when you start creating your sequences and programs. We'll stop that. We'll unmute. We'll unmute and see how it sounds now that I added those just random parts number 2. Okay, it's not too bad. Yeah, so as you know, the Volca drum, probably the main feature of it is that you can create your own sounds, right? So these are the sound controls. So all these knobs here, and partly these here too, are the knobs that you will be using to create your sounds. But before we jump in and start creating sounds from scratch, we should be able to look at how sounds have been created by the Korg people. That's at least my advice. It's a really good way to not get lost on your first journeys with the Volca drum. So I've chosen this step 3 from pattern or program number 7, and as you can see here on the display, it says layers 1 and 2. Okay, and this button here, it says layers 1 and 2. So I'm going to teach you how to use the layer function, because something that I might have not mentioned until now is that each part is and can be composed of up to 2 layers. That means this sound is made up of 2 different sounds. Okay, so let's figure out how those sounds are related and what sounds they are. So the first thing I do is when it's on layer 1 and 2, that is, everything I do with these knobs is going to affect both layers equally. Okay, so I'm going to take the level and bring it all the way down to 0. So there's no sound, right? So now I press layer 1 and 2, and that means I'm going into layer 1. If I kept going, that's layer 2. If I kept going, it comes back to layer 1 and 2. So I'm going to layer 1. There's still no sound, but now I'm bringing up the level all the way up, and I've got this sort of clap, sort of a metallic, noisy clap. Okay, I'm going to bring the volume back down again, press layer 1 and 2 layer button basically, so that it shows me layer 2 over here on the display. I'm sorry, I was covering layer 2. Okay, and I'm going to bring layer 2 up, and it's like a click. It's an attack. Okay, so now I know I'm bringing that volume down again, that level, pressing layer again, and I've got layer 1 and 2. Now I'm bringing both layers up, and that's what it is. So it's the combination of a click attack plus a clap noise sort of combination. So it's pretty effective. Let's see what's going on with number 2. So how is this sound composed? So the layer button, to summarize, is a button that normally you'd be pressing 3 times, right? 1 for accessing layers 1 and 2 together, another time for accessing layer 1, and another time for accessing layer 2. I'm going to leave it at layer 1 and 2, bring the level all the way down. There's no sound now. I'm going to work with the level of layer 1 now, so that I isolate that, and it's this bell. It's definitely louder now than the way it was originally programmed. I'm going to take it all the way down the level, layer 2, level, and I've got this really interesting sine wave sound, okay, resembling a little bit a bell, nicely pitched. Okay, so if I again take the level down to 0, press level, sorry, layer, the layer function again. I'm back on layers 1 and 2, bring it up, and we got the combination. Okay, but probably the way it was originally built was not the way I set it up now, that is both at the same volume all the way up. So that's when you can start playing with, for example, I'm going to again take levels for layer 1 and 2 all the way to 0, put layer 1, which is this thing. I'm going to let it there at about a level of 150. I think it's percent, whatever the unit is, but 150. Okay, and now without touching it any further, I'm going to just leave it there. I'm going to work with layer 2, which is not there yet until there, so I'm going to just find the spot where, to my taste, it's good. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so now I have the sound composed with just the level knob adjusted so that the relationship between the sound number 1 and the sound number 2 of part 2 is to my taste. And that is the same process you can do with the modulation, the envelope generator, the pitch, other parameters, the send into the waveguide. I mean, everything that has to do with the sound design, my advice is to first figure out how to isolate layer 1 from layer 2. And that's the best way to do it, is accessing both layers together, getting rid of the entire level so that nothing sounds, and then deciding how much of one and how much of the other you want to have on your sound. Okay, so probably you wanted to play with this waveguide thing for a while because it's one of the most attractive features of the Volca drum. Now it's got a couple of tricks to it, and I'm gonna try to show you real quick the best way to work with it. Just for understanding, this is like it's like a delay engine, really fine-tuned delay. So the time, which is here it's called tune, but it's really the time knob of a delay engine, is extremely sensitive or sensible. I don't know what's the proper word in English in this case, but and it'll depend on this drawing here. This little drum you see here is one of the two functions that you can have for the waveguide. One is the drum type, and the other one is the or tube, okay, and the other one is the string type. And I'll show you right away how to access the menu that changes that option. But firstly, I wanted to say that if we keep on working with this sound, all right, and we'll tell the Volca drum to send with this knob here a certain amount of this sound to the waveguide. Okay, so I like to start from 0 and then bring it up. Okay, so I can either play constantly while I move the knob, or I can press play with a program and let it do it by itself. So so there you can see how it's feeding this sort of delay waveguide resonator, this resonator engine. There, right? If I take the send all the way down, nothing's happening, at least not with the waveguide resonator. There, okay? So we'll set it at a sort of exaggerated amount so that you can hear it a lot. And now we'll play with these knobs so to see what happens. The one that's least effective or least intense is the body, okay? But decay and tune, you'll probably be able to hear them right away. So let's see what the decay is doing. Okay, so obviously, just as the name of the knob is telling you, it's the amount of the length of that delay after the the attack. Okay, so it can be very short or non-existent. So if you take the decay to 0, it's pretty much the same as getting rid of the send. It's the same effect. Or a lot. Yeah, okay, that's not infinite, but it's quite long. And now with the body control, it'll shape the amount of harmonics contained inside this tube or drum. So it's pretty fun, and this will alter quite a bit the way the tuning works, because if you give it a lot of harmonic content, then this will be more accentuated, right? So this is where it gets crazy, and you can actually hear how it's sort of elongating the tube, the shape of the tube, or shortening the shape of the tube. And these effects can be really fun to play with in real time, like as this is playing, like you just spin it around and it'll get this wacky effects. Or it's something that you can include for your sound design to get harmonics, or it can even give you some nice pitch content for your sound design. So I said that you have two types of waveguide resonator. You'll have to access with the function button once again. Sorry about that. And press the 11 button from the step buttons, and you've changed from the tube to the string. So let's hear that. So just to summarize again, what I've said is that you have to select one part, and whatever you're doing with the waveguide resonator on the send will affect that part. Now this is the downside of this, or maybe the limitation, is that if you choose now to work with part number 1, okay, the only thing that will be different is the amount of send you'll choose. But whatever you did with these 3 knobs for part number 2 will apply to part number 1 as well. So you can't have like 6 independent waveguide configurations for 6 independent parts. What you have is one global configuration for 6 parts, and the level of independence will be how much you're sending into the waveguide. That's really important, because for a while I tried to leave for example a bass drum that was perfectly tuned to the waveguide, and then I worked on a different drum, changed the waveguide, and it really screwed up whatever I had done for part number 1. So what I would advise is to assign one drum or one part to really work with the waveguide and be like independent to that specific part, or maybe 2 parts, but not like every part, because it'll be a mess. And whenever you move this, you'll be really affecting the design of all your sounds at the same time, and that's not cool. Okay, so that was my Korg Volca for absolute beginners video. I hope it helped. I'm going to be leaving a link to a playlist where I've selected, to my taste, which are the best Korg Volca Drum videos on YouTube, tutorials especially, and some performances. So you'll enjoy that. And visit my guitar videos, subscribe if you like them. And excuse my English, it's obviously not my first language. I'm from Chile in South America, and I speak Spanish, really. So take care, cheers, goodbye.